Feast TV is brought to you with support by Missouri Wines, Whole Foods Market, and Roth Distributing. Welcome to the August episode of Feast TV. This is one of my very favorite episodes because in August we celebrate the best of St. Louis food and drink, and this month we're going to be taking you across the region to introduce you to some folks that really help to define classic St. Louis flavor. Speaking of St. Louis classics, Gooey buttercake is clearly something that defines the flavor of St. Louis, and the folks over at Van Buskirk Chocolate Bar in Cotterville, Missouri developed a recipe for Gooey buttercake truffles. Yes, you heard me correctly, and that's what I'm going to be demonstrating today. Now, the Feast 50 is clearly a celebration, and so I'm going to be pairing those really sweet, decadent Gooey buttercake truffles with a sparkling wine from Noble Ice, which is in the Augusta region here in Missouri. And a sparkling wine will go really well with that kind of fatty sweetness of the truffle. In the spirit of the Feast 50, one of the things that we did was we asked a number of culinarians around the city to say what they love most about food and drink in St. Louis. And the answer that Phil Wymore over at Perennial Artisan Ales gave us, we felt really encapsulated the heart and soul of what we tried to give our readers and our viewers in that issue. So let's head over to Perennial and meet Phil.
I'm Phil Wymore. I'm the brewmaster and co-founder of Perennial Artisan Ales. And being a microbrewery here in St. Louis, we do a lot of dining out and drinking and eating on the scene. When Feast magazine approached me about what a perfect day of dining would be like in St. Louis, that was a difficult endeavor for me. There's many different versions of this that I could do. So I have to start out with coffee, and if I'm going to get a coffee, I want a great one, so I'm going to Sump. Scott Carey is the mad scientist of coffee. He's very passionate about what he does, from sourcing the bean, roasting the bean, and extraction. My choice for the summer is going to be a single origin Kyoto drip. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm going to go with a light breakfast. I'm going to stop by Pint-Sized Bakery. And I'm more of a savory guy than a sweet for breakfast, so I'm going to choose either a BLT muffin or a savory scone. So for lunch, I'm going to kick it up a notch and go to Quincy Street Bistro. Chef Rick Lewis has a way of taking comfort foods and elevating them. One choice would be the Southsider with mashed potatoes. And the Southsider is essentially a fried bologna sandwich on brioche with a sunny side up egg. It's very decadent. After a lunch like that, I'm probably going to need a nap to recharge. So after that, I'll be ready for a cocktail. And I'm going to go to Art Bar and go see Tom Halaska. Essentially, I'm just going to ask him to make me something, but I might give him a little direction. I like whiskey and I like gin, and then I'll see what he's going to do with it. He'll probably do some sort of an extract, maybe some bitters, maybe some fruit juice, but it'll be great. So to finish things off, I'm going to go to Farmhouse. Chef Kevin Willman is very passionate about seafood and fish in particular. He'll break down the whole fish in his kitchen, and he's going to give you a presentation that's different than you've ever had before. You can't go wrong with anything on the menu, so I tend to order about half of the menu. I would order any of the fish dishes, but some of the memorable ones I've had have been snapper or cobia. So if you were to follow that path, you couldn't go wrong, but that's just one particular version of an ideal day of dining in St. Louis. Like I said, this scene has so much to offer. I'm Phil Wymore, the brewmaster and co-founder of Perennial Artisan Ales.
I plan to take that exact culinary tour of St. Louis now that I've seen Phil's ideal culinary day here in this gorgeous city. It's really fun to see what other people love most because it sparks ideas for how you can go out and try new stuff across the city. I'm sure you've seen truffles, obviously, in various stores, and you probably are thinking that they must be really difficult to make. This recipe is going to surprise you. So I'm going to start with the ganache, which is the center of the truffle, and it is a mixture, a combination of chocolate, butter, and cream typically. So what I'm starting off with is white chocolate, and I'm chopping it into small enough pieces so that when I pour my hot cream mixture on top of it, that the chocolate will melt easily and quickly. So now I'm going to put together the cream mixture, which is heavy whipping cream, about ½ a cup, 3 ounces of just plain old cream cheese, 1, 2, 3. Because remember, the flavor of Gooey butter cake is it's got a lot of vanilla. It has a lot of, obviously, that kind of cream cheesy flavor and a ton of butter. And so that we're gonna be replicating that flavor and texture in this recipe today. I'm going to split and seed 1 vanilla bean. The aroma of a vanilla bean is so rich, it's unbelievable. And splitting and scraping out the seeds of a vanilla bean is really quite easy. You take a really sharp paring knife, just like this, just run it right down the middle. And then you take your seed like this and lay it flat on your board and take the non-sharp edge of your knife and just run it straight down. And those seeds will come right out. That's where all the flavor is. Now we're going to add in just 1 ounce of honey. I'm gonna put this on the stove and let it come to a boil. Okay, so this has come to a boil. Don't be afraid when it looks kind of lumpy and gross. It tastes delicious. So now I'm just pouring this heated cream cheese, heavy cream, vanilla bean, and honey mixture over my chopped up white chocolate. All right, at this point, you need to learn patience because all you do is let it sit for about 2 minutes, and the heat from that cream is going to start the melting process with the chocolate. 2 minutes have passed, and you want to start stirring in the middle and just barely incorporating the chocolate with the cream mixture. And by stirring it in this way, you will create a smooth ganache. You want it to be gradual. And you can see the change in the color. It almost looks like a lemon curd, the color of it. It is the coolest thing. Just so fun to watch the transformation. Now, I'm going to incorporate my butter along with a tablespoon. You can use vodka. I am using a Missouri-made white whiskey from Crown Valley, and then also a tablespoon of vanilla extract. I have lined this half sheet pan with just a little bit of parchment paper, and little trick, if you crumble that up before you put it on a flat surface, it won't curl on you. So now you just take your ganache and pour it onto your pan and then just spread it evenly. So this is just gonna go into the refrigerator for 1.5 hours at least. It can be in up to overnight. You wanna make sure that it's solidified so that when we roll it into little truffle balls that it sticks together. And so while this is in the fridge, the next place that we're gonna take you in this episode is over to the Companion Early Bird Outlet. Now Companion's been around for 20 years, believe it or not, and it is woven into the fabric of St. Louis. So let's go meet Josh Allen, the company's founder.
Yeah, so we're a 24-hour wholesale operation here. I think our ovens are shut down from about 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. But other than that, we're baking all the time. We're always mixing. Trucks are coming in and out on a daily basis. And we've always wanted to have a factory store. It always seemed like something that we wanted to do. I mean, when you really talk about locality, it's really about buying right from the source. And there's no better way to do that than to come right to the bakery and buy the bread. We're selling everything by the pound here, which is a little bit unique. So, and it's a lot less expensive than bread in the grocery store or bread that you find in our cafes because we don't have to pack it and ship it and take it somewhere. We are celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year, and I have been a part of it from the beginning. I was the founder. 20 years ago in 1993. We have a wonderful group of bakers here that make sure the magic happens on a daily basis, and I'm doing a lot of research, a lot of kind of trying to see ahead to who the customers should be, what kind of products we should be producing for those customers, and kind of what the next steps are for the bakery. We opened the bakery in December of '93. Kaldi started roasting coffee in August, I believe, of 1994. And actually a year before we opened, Schlafly had started brewing beer downtown. And so there was this whole micro vendor community that was kind of developing and growing kind of in conjunction with the growth of the culinary scene. And chefs were well traveled, they were educated, they were going to Chicago and New York and San Francisco and seeing what was available to them, whether it was by farmers or by small producers. And I think they were beginning to demand and look for those same products in St. Louis. And we happened to come along at kind of the perfect time for that. My grandfather had taught me when I was a kid that if you just shut up and listen, the customer will tell you how to be successful. And that's how we kind of grew the business. I mean, we give all the credit in the world to the chefs in St. Louis, and they're really expanding the boundaries of flavor and texture and taste and everything. And so we've been able to carry that forward in some of the breads. The chamomile bread that we did last week, that actually was quinoa and wild rice and chamomile, and that was actually a dish that Kevin Nashin did at a 30th anniversary cooking class I did with him at the Kitchen Conservatory.
There's people that have bought things from Companion since the very beginning, since 20 years ago, and they came down to the bakery when it was just maybe just a stand like this big, and look at us now, you know, we've grown. It's outstanding how much we've grown, you know. I guess I enjoy seeing everybody, like, you know, interacting, and it feels like we're neighbors now, and they've been coming for years and years, but they still get so excited to see everything, and they're like, oh, the apple croissants look great today, or those sticky buns look amazing, you know, and I'm like, I agree with you. Let's get some of that.
So the biggest growth moment was probably in the fall of 1995 when the Deerbergs family kind of got behind us and said, we'd like you to sell bread in every one of our grocery stores. And then in the last 10 years, we've got it into some frozen production and some regional production. And you know, that's where our growth comes from. St. Louis is a wonderful community, just not growing at a huge rate that will sustain, you know, the 100 folks that we have working for us, and we're really looking to give those people professional and personal opportunities. So we're looking to grow the business, and part of that is going to be frozen. And so that's kind of the next game changer for us, is making sure we've got a facility that can produce, you know, the volume frozen to make it available in Columbia and Kansas City and Springfield and possibly to Indianapolis and Chicago. And you know, we really want to be the preeminent bakery in the middle of the country. And that's really, you know, what we've set our focus on, and what we all come to work every day to do.
Companion is one of those companies where no matter where you go in St. Louis, whether it is a restaurant or, you know, the grocery store, you see something by Companion, and everything that they make is just so high quality. I love what they bring to the St. Louis food scene. So now, using just a classic melon baller, I'm making these into the insides of each individual truffle, and I'm just gonna keep going until I've filled up this sheet pan. So I have all of my gooey truffle interiors sitting here, and the next step is going to be dipping them into even more chocolate. But before I move on to that step of the recipe, we just introduced you to an artisan bread maker here in St. Louis, Companion Baking. And there is another artisan company here in the St. Louis area that is making a product that a lot of us don't assign that moniker to, and that is Excel Bottling Company. They're making soda and have been making artisan soda ever since the 1950s. It's a multi-generational family-run company, and so let's head over to Breeze and take a sip of nostalgia.
XL Bottling Company was started by my grandparents, Lefty Meyer and Caddy Meyer, back in 1936. The actual homestead actually dates back to 1875, which was my grandmother's grandmother house. My grandfather actually caught a bank robber or got the reward money, and so that was his break in life, and with that reward money he went and purchased a used bottling machine and started bottling soda. You know, it started out just with my grandfather and a local guy, Joe Becker. It was just two of them, and then my grandmother doing the books. And over the years, it just kept on growing very slowly. And so through the years, my grandfather was offered to be bought out by some large bottlers and just said, you know what, this is my house. You know, I live here, I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm going to stay, and I'm not selling. And so he lived into the house until he passed away. And my grandmother, who never drove a car, and did all the books, lived to be 99 years old, and she lived in the house too. And so it's really been our family house and family homestead since starting. Now we use the house. You know, the rooms haven't changed much. I mean, the dining room is now our office. My sister's on my grandfather's old desk calling customers. Carla's in the other corner on a desk taking orders. You know, what makes us unique really is that the old-time mom and pop bottling business is still alive here in Breeze, and so you know every town had a mom and pop bottling facility. Somewhat similar to kind of how the beer industry is right now. A lot of micro brewers. Back then there was a lot of micro soda, and then over time some of the people start selling out, and other people decided, hey, my kids aren't going to go into the business, and they would just shut down. And fortunately for us, when that happened, we just would buy their used equipment to really keep us going. We have traditions around here. We're still taking bagged sugars and setting it the night before and letting it turn into nice golden syrup, and then coming in and adding the flavoring and bottling the soda. And it really tastes better. And so we named this company XL because we wanted to produce the most excellent soft drink we could. If you make a great product, people will figure it out and seek you out. On our customers, we have somewhat of a cult following. It becomes kind of a part of growing up. Coming to the XL Bottling Company, buying some soda, returning it, drinking it at proms, homecoming. We've had customers said, hey, we're getting married in Disneyland. Can you ship some glass bottles down there, because that's what we want to put on our table and drink as part of our wedding. And it's like, wow. And then, we have a guy from like Gillette, Wyoming that will drive out every year, fill his vehicle up, and almost to the fact that it's bottoming me out. He'll fill that up and he'll drive back, and we'll see him next year, and it's just like it's traditions, and so it has become a tradition for a lot of people. It is neat, and in the soda business, there's just not that many small-time bottler companies like us. From catching a bank robber and having 2 employees, now we're 80 years almost plus, and now we're up to about 20 employees, and still making the soda with pure cane sugar, and still making the flavors that we have always have made. We are just a regional soda company, and most of what we make is really sold within 30 miles of where we make it. The smaller you are, the easier it is. As you get a little bit bigger, it does become a little bit more complicated. So I mean, we are truly tuned into growing slowly and managing that growth. At the end of the day, we're a family.
When I visited the family out at XL, and I heard the story about how they were these holdouts against being bought out by the big guys like Pepsi and Coke, I was just, I don't know, I really loved that story, and so I'm glad we had a chance to share it with you. So right now, I'm going to be chopping up the chocolate that I'm going to melt over a double boiler so that we're going to dip our truffles into this. And I just need to kind of do a rough chop, kind of break everything up. All right, this is plenty of chocolate. And I'm going to cut 1 extra piece that's a solid block, because after I get this chocolate to roughly 115 degrees over my double boiler, then I'm going to add in this chunk of chocolate and help it come back down to 80 degrees as part of the tempering process. So this is what's called a double boiler, and the reason why you melt your chocolate in this way is that it's incredibly gentle. So rather than putting the chocolate in a pot and just kind of heating it over direct heat, this essentially is an indirect heat that will very gently melt the chocolate. We want to get it up to 115 degrees. So as this gets a little bit more melted, I'm going to go ahead and put my thermometer in there so I can make sure to monitor that temperature. All right, so my chocolate has reached about 115 degrees. I'm going to remove it from the heat. Be really careful when you take this off the heat because it is steam underneath and you can burn yourself. Be careful. I'm going to take this off the heat, and now I'm adding that chunk of chocolate, and I'm going to stir this constantly until it comes back down to 80 degrees. We're essentially tempering the chocolate at this point. So when we dip the truffles into this mixture, it'll form a nice shell. The temperature of the white chocolate has been brought back down to 80 degrees, roughly just above room temperature. And now I'm putting it back onto the heat to bring it up again to roughly 86 degrees. Very, very, very gently. I have this set on 3, so like super, super low. And once I get this back up to a slightly higher temp, I'm gonna go ahead and dip these really decadent looking truffle interiors into the white chocolate, and I'm gonna roll it around in this powdered sugar. Now, these are extremely high in butterfat, and so you wanna do this really, really quickly. Just kind of dip these guys with a slotted spoon. Let the chocolate kind of fall through the excess. Then you just roll it in your powdered sugar. Voila, you have yourself a gooey buttercake truffle. So I'm here making all of these white chocolate truffles, and there is a place here in town that has been feeding your sweet tooth for 101 years. It is Crown Candy Kitchen. It's in North St. Louis, and they make tons of great chocolate as well as heart-stopping BLTs, milkshakes, and the man behind it is Andy. And if you go to Crown Candy, he is an unmistakable part of the experience, so let's go meet him now.
You know, we're a little family restaurant that's been in North St. Louis City for 101 years now. We're third generation. You know, we're in the same location, doing the same thing we've been doing our entire histories. Yeah, we make our own ice cream, make our own chocolates. We serve food all day. I said, so, you know, we're nothing fancy, but, you know, we're kind of an institution in St. Louis. You know, my parents both said, go to college, get an education, you know, and after spending 6 months at Florissant Valley eating cheese fries and drinking Dr. Pepper, I thought, nah, this isn't for me. I'm gonna go to work down at Crown's, and, you know, I can work 4 or 5 days a week, it's easy money, you know, it's a great life to lead. Well, that was, you know, 30 some odd years ago, and now I'm working, you know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, depending on what season it is, but I love what I do. And, you know, there's a sense of responsibility that I have to this community and to my customers that I need to be here and doing what I'm doing because there's so much history and so many memories here. And so it's kind of on me to make sure that this is going the way it's supposed to. Every once in a while I walk in here and it kind of, you know, blows my mind to think that we're this, you know, famous little iconic place in North St. Louis City. You know, I don't think my grandfather or even my father would have dreamt that we would be doing what we do today. We were never built to run hundreds of people through the store, you know, get them in, get them out, make all these malts. I mean, I made 523 malts on a Saturday. It was, you know, it's the record. And, you know, we sell 200 BLTs a day some days. So it's, like I said, it just kind of sometimes makes me go, wow, this is pretty amazing what my family's accomplished on this corner. But a lot of it has to do with the community, the customers. I mean, I'm not here if they're not here, so, you know, I owe most of it to them. So once again, I feel that obligation to be down here doing what I do. Anytime somebody will walk by and they'll stop and they'll thank me. They'll basically say, thank you for still being here. And, you know, like I said, I take it for granted, but I just come down here, open that door, I come to work, and I do my thing. But when people really genuinely say, thank you for still doing this, thank you for still being on this corner, I think anytime that moment comes along, it really kind of makes everything I do worthwhile, because to know that people on the other side of the counter really appreciate what we're doing, I think that's it. You know, that's just the little simple thank yous that people give me are probably the ones that I remember the most and are the most special to me. We're not a place trying to be old. We are old. I mean, you know, the candy cases are original. The soda fountain back bar is original. The booths are original. You know, the tin ceiling. So I think that if people have a sense of just how many people and how many experiences and memories have been made here, that's the thing. You know, think, like I said once again, we cram all that into this little bitty tiny space. You know, yeah, it can be a little overwhelming to think about the history, you know, of this corner. Personally, I love our Reuben. I think the Reuben's our best sandwich, but people have a love affair with bacon, so they get the BLT. And don't get me wrong, you can't go wrong with that. But, you know, for me, I'd say get a Reuben. Now, if you're with somebody else, you know, then get the Reuben and get the BLT. Share the sandwiches. Get one shake, split that, and then maybe get a little candy on the way out the door. My grandfather opened this business, and he stuck with it. My father took it over, and he stuck with it. And then my brothers and I took it over, and now, you know, it's on me to keep doing this. And I'm just lucky that I fell into this.
Gooey butter cake truffles, they really look like the top of a gooey butter cake. I can't believe it. This is so much fun. And if you don't feel like making these at home, they are available during the month of August over at Van Buskirk, the folks who developed this recipe for Feast, for our Feast 50 issue. Pairing wine with desserts, especially extremely sweet desserts like something like a gooey butter cake, is a little bit tricky. And so this is a relatively sweet, sparkling wine from Noble Ice in Augusta, Missouri. And it's gonna make a nice pair because the bubbles will help to kind of cleanse the palate, because this is really quite fatty. And the sweetness, if you have a wine that doesn't match the sweetness of the dessert that you're eating, then the wine itself can taste a little bit bitter, which is something that you don't want. It's always fun to pop open a bottle of sparkling wine or champagne when you're celebrating something. And this is Feast's anniversary issue this August. So cheers to all of you at home. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next month.